What if I told you that Zeus, the almighty king of the gods, the wielder of lightning, the conqueror of titans, once lost everything? There was a time when the heavens went silent, when thunder no longer rolled across the clouds, when the immortal gods of Olympus fled their thrones in absolute terror. This is the story of Typhon, the monster so terrible that even Zeus himself fell before him. A creature born from the fury of the earth itself, designed for one purpose, to destroy the king of the gods and end the reign of Olympus forever. But before we witness the most catastrophic battle in all of Greek mythology, we need to understand how it all began. After Zeus defeated the Titans in the bloody war known as the Titanomachy, he established himself as the supreme ruler of the cosmos. Peace, or what the gods called peace, finally reigned. But someone wasn't happy about it, and that someone was about to unleash hell itself. Deep beneath the earth, in the darkest pit of Tartarus, the defeated Titans writhed in eternal punishment. Cronus, Atlas, and the others, all chained, all broken, all cast down by Zeus's lightning. But their mother remembered. Gaia, the earth, the oldest of all beings. She had watched her children, the Titans, locked away in darkness. And she had watched Zeus, her own grandson, sit comfortably on his golden throne while her sons suffered. Her rage grew with every passing century. So she went to Tartarus, not the place, but the being, the living embodiment of the abyss itself. And together, they conceived something that should never have existed, a weapon, a monster, a god-killer. From the union of earth and abyss came Typhon. Picture this, a creature so massive, his head brushed the stars. 100 dragon heads sprouted from his shoulders, each one breathing fire, each one screaming in a different, terrifying voice. Some roared like lions, others hissed like serpents, others bellowed like bulls. His eyes blazed with living flames. His arms could span the distance from sunrise to sunset. Instead of legs, he had colossal serpents that writhed and crushed everything in their path. Wings darker than midnight spread from his back, so vast they could eclipse the sun. And when he screamed, the very fabric of reality trembled. The moment Typhon rose from the earth, the world knew terror. He didn't walk, he ravaged. With every step, mountains collapsed into rubble. His breath turned forests into ash. The seas boiled where his shadow fell. Gaia had given him one command, whispered like a curse into his 100 ears. Destroy Olympus. Cast down Zeus. Let chaos reign again. And Typhon smiled with 100-fanged mouths and began his march toward the home of the gods. On Mount Olympus, the gods felt it before they saw it. The ground shook, the air grew hot, the stars themselves seemed to flicker with fear. Hermes, the messenger, burst into the throne room, his face pale. Something is coming. Something wrong. When they looked down from their mountain, they saw him, a walking apocalypse, a nightmare made flesh. Typhon, ascending toward them, his 100 heads roaring challenges that shattered clouds. For the first time since the Titanomachy, the Olympian gods knew true fear. Ares, the god of war, actually stepped backward. Athena, goddess of wisdom, had no strategy that could defeat this. Poseidon's hands trembled. Even Hera, queen of the gods, whispered to Zeus, "We should run." And run they did. According to some versions of the myth, most of the Olympians fled to Egypt, using their divine powers to disguise themselves as animals. Artemis became a cat. Apollo became a crow. Hermes transformed into an ibis. They scattered like frightened mortals, abandoning Olympus, abandoning their thrones, abandoning everything. For the first time in ages, Olympus stood empty. The temples below went silent. No thunder answered prayers. No rain fell on the crops. The seasons stopped turning. Mortals looked to the sky and saw only darkness. But Zeus did not run. He couldn't. He was the king, and if he fell, everything fell with him. So he stood at the peak of Mount Olympus, lightning crackling in his fist, and watched Typhon come. "If this is the end," he muttered, "then I'll face it like a god." The battle began not with words, but with violence that shook the cosmos. Zeus hurled the first thunderbolt, a spear of pure lightning that could split mountains. It struck Typhon in the chest and exploded with the force of 1,000 suns. For a moment, there was only light. And then Typhon laughed. The sound was like every nightmare screaming at once. "Is that all, little king?" Typhon unleashed his flames, not ordinary fire, but primordial chaos fire that burned reality itself. Zeus raised his Aegis shield, but the heat forced him backward. The battle escalated. Zeus summoned storm after storm. Typhon tore mountains from the earth and hurled them like stones. One of Typhon's serpent legs wrapped around Zeus's chariot, crushing it to splinters. Zeus fell, but caught himself mid-air, flying on raw, divine power. Thunder roared, the earth split open, the seas rose in massive tsunamis from the shockwaves alone. Zeus threw everything he had, bolt after bolt after bolt of lightning, each one powerful enough to kill any other creature that ever lived. But Typhon kept coming. Then something happened that had never happened before. Typhon caught a lightning bolt. He held Zeus's own weapon, crackling and writhing in his monstrous hand, and slowly crushed it into sparks. "These belong to me now." The tide turned. Typhon's sheer size and power began to overwhelm even the king of the gods. His 100 heads attacked from all angles. His serpent legs coiled and struck. His wings created hurricanes that threw Zeus off balance. And then came the moment that changed everything. In the chaos of combat, Typhon's massive claws found their mark. They wrapped around Zeus, pinning his arms, crushing the breath from his lungs. Zeus struggled, but for the first time in his existence, he couldn't break free. Typhon brought Zeus close to his central head, the largest, most terrible of all his faces. "You imprisoned my brothers in Tartarus. You rule through fear and lightning. But lightning can be stolen, Zeus. And fear can be taught." And then Typhon did the unthinkable. He tore out Zeus's tendons. Not his muscles, not his bones, his tendons. The very sinews that gave the god his strength. Without them, Zeus was powerless. He couldn't move, couldn't fight, couldn't even lift his famous lightning bolts. Zeus, king of the gods, fell, and the sky went silent. For the first time since creation, there was no thunder, no lightning. The heavens themselves seemed to hold their breath. Typhon roared his triumph, and the sound echoed across every corner of the world. Olympus had fallen. With Zeus defeated, Typhon claimed the throne of Olympus as his own. But he wasn't a ruler. He was destruction incarnate. He didn't want to govern. He wanted to break. The world descended into chaos. Storms raged without end, but they weren't natural storms. They were twisted, wrong, violent for violence's sake. Fire rained from the sky. The seas churned with boiling water. Mountains continued to collapse, as if the earth itself was trying to escape. The gods remained in hiding, powerless and terrified. Even in their animal disguises in distant Egypt, they felt the weight of Typhon's reign. Mortals suffered most of all. Without the gods there was no order. Crops withered without rain. The sun seemed dimmer. Prayers went unanswered, echoing into an empty sky. Children asked their parents, "Where is Zeus? Where is the thunder?" And parents had no answer. Some say Typhon tried to wield Zeus's lightning himself, but the bolts came out twisted and black, bringing only destruction, never justice. He mocked the throne, bellowed challenges to gods who couldn't answer, let his serpent legs crush the sacred temples. Meanwhile, Zeus's body lay hidden in the Coretian cave in Cilicia, guarded by Delphine, a half-woman, half-serpent monster loyal to Typhon. His tendons were kept separate, locked away like trophies. The king of the gods was alive, but broken, mortal, helpless. Days passed, then weeks. The world grew darker. It seemed like the age of the Olympians was over, that chaos had won, that Typhon's victory was permanent. But in the shadows, two gods were planning something desperate. Hermes, the trickster god, hadn't fled with the others, not entirely. He'd been watching, waiting, and he realized something. Typhon might have won the battle, but this war wasn't over. He found Pan, the wild god of nature, who was too stubborn to run and too clever to face Typhon directly. "Zeus is still alive," Hermes whispered. "Broken, but alive. If we can restore him," Pan grinned his goat-like grin, "then the big bastard doesn't know what's coming." They moved in shadow and silence. Hermes used all his cunning, disguises, misdirection, divine stealth. Pan used the chaos of the broken world to mask their movements. When they reached the cave, they found Zeus inside, barely conscious, his godly power reduced to a flicker. But the real problem was outside. Delphine. Half-woman, half-dragon. Her eyes glowed with malice. Her coils could crush stone. And around her neck, hanging like gruesome jewelry, were Zeus's tendons. She hissed at the approaching gods. "Come no closer, or I'll swallow you whole." This had to be done carefully. Hermes was the god of thieves. Pan was the god of wild panic. Together, they were about to pull off the greatest heist in history. Pan began to play his pipes. The music was strange and intoxicating, the kind that made minds wander and guards drowsy. Delphine swayed, her eyes growing heavy. What is that sound?" While she was entranced, Hermes moved. Faster than thought, quieter than breath, he slipped past her coils. His fingers that had stolen from gods and mortals alike, reached for the tendons. Delphine realized the trick too late. She lunged, jaws wide. Pan unleashed his signature ability. Panic. A wave of pure primal fear that could scatter armies. Even Delphine, monstrous as she was, recoiled in terror. In that moment, Hermes grabbed the tendons and ran. They raced back to Zeus, Delphine's screams echoing behind them. Hermes worked with shaking hands, reattaching the divine sinews, weaving them back into Zeus's body. The change was immediate. Color returned to Zeus's face. His muscles tensed. Lightning flickered in his eyes. He stood, and the cave shook. "Where," Zeus growled, his voice resonating with divine fury, "is that overgrown lizard?" For the first time in what felt like forever, thunder rumbled in the distance. The king had returned. Zeus emerged from that cave as something more than he'd been before. He'd been humbled, he'd been broken, he'd felt powerless, and now he was absolutely furious. He didn't sneak, didn't plan. He simply flew straight toward Olympus, and the sky itself announced his coming. Thunder cracked like a war drum. Lightning lit up the world. Typhon heard it. That familiar sound he thought he'd silenced forever. Thunder. His 100 eyes narrowed. Impossible. But there he was, Zeus, fully restored, and absolutely done holding back. "Typhon!" Zeus's voice shook the heavens. "You wanted the king of the gods? Here I am!" The second battle made the first look like a skirmish. This time Zeus didn't fight to survive. He fought to annihilate. He summoned every lightning bolt in creation. The sky became a web of electricity, each bolt striking with precision and rage. Not dozens, not hundreds, thousands of lightning bolts, all at once, all focused on one target. Typhon roared and fought back, his 100 heads breathing fire, his claws tearing at the sky, his wings creating hurricanes. The battle raged across the world. They fought over mountains, which crumbled. They fought over seas, which evaporated. They fought in the clouds, turning day to night and back again. Every god, every mortal, every creature on earth stopped and watched the sky burn. But this time was different. Zeus had learned. He was faster, smarter, more focused. Every attack had purpose. Every bolt struck a different head. And slowly, inevitably, Typhon began to falter. One head exploded in lightning. Another burned to ash. A third froze mid-roar, struck by a bolt so cold it stopped even primordial fire. Typhon screamed, 100 voices crying out in pain and fury. He tried to flee. He turned and ran, his massive wings carrying him across the Mediterranean, towards Sicily. But Zeus was right behind him, relentless as a storm. There is no running from thunder. As Typhon reached Sicily, Zeus raised both hands. Lightning gathered, not individual bolts, but pure, concentrated divine power. The sky turned white, and Zeus threw everything. The blast was so powerful it could be seen from every corner of the world. The impact created a shockwave that flattened forests and boiled seas. Typhon fell. But Zeus wasn't finished. As Typhon tried to rise one last time, Zeus tore an entire mountain from the earth, Mount Etna, and he threw it. The mountain crashed down onto Typhon's body, pinning him beneath unimaginable weight. The impact was so great it buried the monster deep in the earth, trapped forever beneath Sicily. Typhon screamed one final time, a sound of rage and defeat that echoed through the underworld itself. And then, silence. But his fury didn't die. Even trapped, even buried, Typhon's rage burns on. His breath becomes the fire of Mount Etna. His writhing becomes earthquakes. His roars become eruptions. To this day, the volcano still smolders, still rumbles. Because beneath that mountain, Typhon is still there, still furious, still dreaming of the day he might break free. But for now, Zeus stood victorious atop the prison of his greatest enemy. The king had reclaimed his throne. The gods returned to Olympus. The mortals' prayers were answered again. Rain fell, crops grew, the seasons turned. Order was restored. But Zeus was changed. He'd learned that even the mightiest can fall, that power can be stripped away, that victory is never guaranteed. Some say this battle taught Zeus humility. Others say it taught him ruthlessness, that he never again showed mercy to threats. The ancient Greeks believed every volcanic eruption was Typhon's rage leaking through. Every earthquake was him trying to break free. Every time Mount Etna rumbled, parents would tell their children, "That's Typhon trying to escape, but Zeus's mountain holds." This myth wasn't just a story to them. It was an explanation for natural disasters, a reminder that chaos is always lurking beneath the surface of order, that the battle between civilization and destruction never truly ends. Zeus won this battle. He always wins in the stories. But Typhon? He's still down there, still burning, still waiting. And sometimes, when the earth shakes and the mountain roars, you have to wonder, what if he breaks free?